Sponsored by Stand Up to All Hate. Call a timeout against hate.
We finally got it. The college football playoffs are set. We know who's where and who's playing who. So let's discuss. Who's got a gripe? Who's got a complaint?
Because first off, is that how we have to start this off? We can't be excited about it?
I'm excited about it, but that's par for the course when it comes to this stuff, that everyone wants to complain about the situation.
I'm not starting this. I'm not starting this off on a negative vein. No chance, man.
I think it's going to be
cool.
awesome.
This is awesome. I'm excited for it. By the way, VAR, you've got to be excited because
we got the
Penn
best
State's
path.
got the easiest path by far.
Yeah, we got a great path. I mean, I didn't like the fact that we lost, but I did highlight it on our show that if we did lose, that there was a chance that would be something to the effect of what our path would be. And, yeah, I mean, I like it. I like it a lot, actually. So, and we could end up playing you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
which
to get there,
it's that's the unfortunate part about some of the complaints is. Look, there's obviously the debate between Alabama and SMU. That's going to be the thing that stands out the most. And we talked about it last week. That was always going to be the decision for the committee. And you do have to wonder if Clemson had blown out SMU, would that have created an opportunity more for Alabama? Whereas once SMU came back in that game, tied it up, forced Clemson to kick a 56-yarder game winner, did that ultimately change the opinion of a lot of the folks in the College Football Playoff Committee, or was their mind made up going into the conference championship weekend saying that we're not going to ding a team that gets to the conference championship game and loses? Because otherwise you could make the case that a lot of teams wouldn't want to have to even go play those games. They wouldn't want to risk going to a conference championship game if they were ranked in a position to go to the college football playoff, but with a loss, they would drop out. A lot of them would be like, well, what's the point of going and playing then? You're penalizing us for being successful enough to go play in our conference championship, but then at the same time, if we don't win it, we're out. So, I understand there's an argument to be made for strength of schedule, and Alabama's strength of schedule is harder and more difficult than SMU's. That's fine. But if we want to debate that, we also need to debate the fact that the SEC only plays 8 conference games. Big Ten plays 9. There's other conferences where it's 8 versus 9. So you have those issues. If you really want to get into it, we could talk about the athletic director, Greg Byrne, for Alabama, who comes out and says, well, we're going to have to change up how we go about scheduling our non-conference. Greg, what do you mean? You guys didn't lose in the non-conference. Your non-conference was ridiculously easy. The toughest team you played was Wisconsin and Madison, which finishes the 12th best team in the Big Ten. That wasn't your issue why Alabama's not in the playoff. You lost to Vandy. You got blown out by Oklahoma in Norman. That's why you're not in the playoff. It wasn't because of your non-conference schedule. I mean, some of the arguments that have come out from all of this are hilarious. And that was probably at the top of the list, is all these Alabama fans were like, well, we're just not going to play anybody. You didn't anyway. You just played Mercer a couple weeks ago. What do you mean you're non-conference? If anything, go play an extra conference game. If you think the SEC is superior, play 9 games then. Go do what the Big Ten does. And then maybe that gets you in over SMU, or go play 9 or 10. I mean, Nick Saban talked about it. Just play more conference games. And then you can kind of flex on everyone with how difficult your schedule is, because we've got these mega conferences now. I think that's going to be one of the bigger changes they look at, is with the conferences being as big as they are, you get some teams like Texas, for example. Who's Texas' best win? I mean, seriously, who's their best win? They played a much lesser version of the SEC. So we can go through the exercises of comparing resumes. At the end of the day, the committee talked about not penalizing teams for playing the conference championship weekend, and they didn't, and they held up their word. So, look, I would do a few things differently if it was me, but I can't wait to see these teams score off and play. It's going to be awesome.
And so the lineups are purely based off of what the end rankings of how they rank the teams was the result of how they aligned on the bracket, correct?
Yeah, which there's there's so many things that bother me about kind of what they did, how they did it.
To me, it's kind of a jacked up bracket. It really is kind of, in my opinion, it's a jacked up bracket.
So think about this. Clemson lost to South Carolina, but Clemson won the ACC. So because they won the ACC, they're an automatic qualifier to get into the college football playoff. I don't have an issue with that. I actually think that's how it should be for all of the Power 4 conference champs and then the highest ranked Group of 5 champ. What shouldn't happen is that championship gets you an automatic qualifier for a bye. That's where I draw the line. I mean, honestly, if we're being real and I had my way, it'd be 16 teams and I wouldn't allow anyone to have a bye. But we're not there, so whatever. What the problem is Clemson is ranked 16th in their final ranking. And they had to put them at 16th because South Carolina beat them, and they're at 15. So since Clemson automatically qualifies with their ACC championship, they allow the head-to-head to matter then. All right, well, where does head-to-head not matter? Well, Penn State knows Ohio State. Ohio State beat Penn State in Happy Valley. And for some reason, they're behind Penn State, which doesn't really make as much sense. Although, again, we go back to the conference championship weekend. Penn State made it to the Big Ten championship. Ohio State didn't. So Penn State's ranked higher than Ohio State. So there's another example of that too. But you just look at it that way and go, well, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, Clemson just beat SMU, and SMU is still ranked higher in the final rankings. So there's a lot of things that don't connect, don't make sense with how they ended up doing their final rankings. It was just their way of getting the 12 teams that I think they would say have earned the right to play for the playoff in their mind.
Who do you think should have had the bye weeks? Are those 4 teams correct, or should it have been a different team?
Again, I would do one of two things. If you were going to do this format, I would reseed after the first round, which they're not going to do. Meaning, you're going to look at the number 1 seeds and then and number 2 and number 3 and number 4, and then they're going to play. For example, Oregon is going to have to play the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee.
That's crazy.
Which is nuts. And by the way,
that's like your national title game right there.
You can make that case. And their path as a team that got a bye will be the most difficult of any of them. Because then if they beat, Ohio State, Tennessee, whoever is the winner of the first round, they would then play potentially Texas, who's one of the higher seeds that's above them in that part of the bracket. And then let's just say they play the highest seed for the national championship. Well, that'd be Georgia. They're the 2 seed. So your path is incredibly difficult. Thank you very much for going undefeated, winning the Big Ten, and being the number 1 overall seed. Mind you, here's your path to win a national championship.
It's crazy, man.
It's ridiculous. What I would have done was this. I would have made the 4 Power 4 conference champions automatic qualifiers. I would have had the highest Group of 5 team like Boise. They automatically qualify too. But then I'm going to have the committee go ahead and rank those teams based on their rankings. So Oregon would still be 1, and they would get the bye, but they would be in the portion of the bracket that plays the winner of the 5 and 12 or whatever it is, and which in this case would have been the winner of like Notre Dame and Clemson. So instead of going through this gauntlet where they're playing the winner of the 8 and 9, they could potentially get a matchup versus 2 teams that weren't viewed quite as highly, I guess, in that case. But it would have been more of like Oregon 1, UGA 2. If it was Penn State 3, Texas 3, however you see it, and then vice versa, the other is 4th. Like those 4 teams, to me, if those are your 4 highest ranked, they should get a bye. And then the next subsequent 8 teams, 5 through 12, would be ranked and they'd play off in the first round.
I thought to myself, if you come up with who your 4 bye week teams are, you list your 4 bye week teams, do away with rankings altogether. Put the 4 teams that you feel are going to have the byes, and then do a lottery with the rest of the 8. I think that S would be kind of exciting, and it kind of takes away any type of this person has this logic, this person has this logic, this person's like bump that. Just put them on some bouncy balls, put them in the dip, run it around.
Have a lottery.
I mean, why not? It's 8 teams. Why not have a lottery on who plays who? I mean, I thought it was interesting. The most interesting one is Oregon's draw. Like that's That's the most interesting one of them all.
Like
man.
the reseeding is the part that bothers me because there's other playoff formats that do it. I think the
lack
NBA,
of reseeding.
Yeah, the fact that you should be rewarded and punished based on your seeding every single round, not just when you get in, to where you're the lower seed, you play the top seed. Well, what if that team, that lower seed, wins? You reseed them. And this isn't the case. And that's the part that bothers me. And there's other playoff formats that do that as well, too. I think the NBA might do it. And it doesn't really make much sense to me because then it's all about you're depending on the committee to give you the best path. So if you're, the Texas or if you're Penn State, you're looking at it going, I mean, we just lost our conference championship games, and we've got a better opportunity to get to the college football, the Final Four, than maybe the other team that just beat us.
That doesn't seem to make sense.
It doesn't.
But then now it does put a lot of pressure. Like I was talking to somebody there, like, man, it's like it seems like it was a great draw and a great pool for Penn State. I said, but imagine if they were to lose to SMU in the first round, or if they were to lose to Boise in the second round. Like, because there's the expectation that they should beat two of the easiest teams in the playoff. They draw two of the easiest teams in the playoff to play. If they were to lose, I mean, what does that mean for the head coach? Like, I mean, every single time we lose, the first thing they go to is get rid of him.
Can I make a statement in defense of James Franklin? So everyone throws around the top 5 wins. Like he's one in, what is he now? 1 in 14, whatever it is.
It's abysmal.
And then they're like, oh, and you go back before James Franklin in 2000, they've got 1 win over a top 5 team. Dude, show me the stats on every team versus top 5 opponents. And in all seriousness, like people act like, oh yeah, certain coaches have a great record versus top 5 teams. No, they don't. Like, no, they don't. Like, I don't care who you are. It's like every time I hear someone go, well, he's really struggled versus pressure today. And it's like, yeah, every quarterback has. Have you ever looked at the entire list of quarterbacks versus pressure, however they divide it up on PFF or any of the other websites? Like, go look at their numbers versus pressure. None of them are good. Like, yes, they're completing a little above 50%. That's usually what it is. Some guys are a little bit lower than that, but for the most part, they're not playing as well if they have a clean pocket. If they were struggling in a clean pocket, they probably wouldn't be playing at all. So I hate that argument where they're like, oh man, James Franklin's really struggled versus top 5 teams. It's like, all right, show me a guy who's got a winning record versus top 5 teams. In all seriousness, like the best ones are maybe 500, maybe. Like I'd love to go back and look at Nick Saban. Have you looked at Kirby Smart's record versus Alabama? Does anyone talk about that? Like, not great. I mean, it doesn't matter. But they just won the SEC. They're the number 2 overall seed. You can always talk about that. It is a lazy, tired argument. Like they're going into the games as underdogs. So what you're basically doing is saying, hey man, we need James to upset these teams. I mean, Oregon's been the number 1. They were the best team in the country, wire to wire, and they're going in as the number 1 seed. And they're like, no, yeah, James Franklin's going to win this. It's like, dude, okay, like it's such a bad stat. I hate that, but I do think there's some validity to the conversation of. Someone asked me about Ryan Day. Hey, Ohio State gets to host Tennessee, and what happens if they lose to Tennessee? Yeah, after what we just saw versus Michigan, like, I mean, Kirk Herbstreit talked about it. He has to be tough when that first third down comes out. They go 3 and out. They have to punt, and they're booing. Like, I was thinking in my head, I wonder if Ohio State, the actual coaches and team, were like, I probably wouldn't mind if we had to go down to Knoxville. Like tough environment. I've told people that's one of the toughest environments I've ever played in college or pro. But you at least know what you're getting into when you go on the road versus like an environment like that. You don't expect it when you're at home, and things aren't going well, and you got your fans. You're supposed to be behind you, but they're booing you.
So
that's Penn State too, though.
That's us too. Is that still going on in Columbus? Like they haven't shifted past. Hey, we're in the college football playoff.
No, well, it's not a buddy. No.
What do you mean? Like they don't care.
Yeah,
they just lost. They end the season on a loss. Yeah. It's like. That's all people are thinking about right now in Columbus. Like, that is another one of those. Well, they could still play for a national championship. Ohio State fans will get over it. No, they won't. They don't get over a loss to Michigan. It takes another year where they have the next opportunity to try to beat Michigan before they get over it. Yeah. That's the funny thing about college football is I have a different perspective because I travel around and we get to talk to folks from different places and you see a lot of things. But some of the narratives that come out, like I'm telling you, man, the Alabama one was the best. Well, we're not a part of your playoff. We're not going to schedule as difficult of a non-conference. All right, you didn't anyway. So what are we talking about here, pal? Like, it's just ridiculous. People, and by the way, people are getting chirpy at me for Penn State because, hey, what time's the start of that playoff game there, LaVar?
Yeah, I think it's early.
You think? I know it's early. It's at noon. And by the way, you guys doing a whiteout. That's interesting.
We are doing a whiteout at noon.
I mean, we were told that you can't do a whiteout at noon. But apparently you can.
It's supposed to be late. It's supposed to be under the lights when you do a whiteout.
Hey, I get it. I'm just telling you, like, there is a lot of hypocrisy running rampant right now through college football with some of the things the fans are saying and complaining about.
Sponsored by Stand Up to All Hate. Call a timeout against hate.